let's get started with our first topic, um, Mason Mount. So yeah, the stories came out. We got a screenshot. Like how I heard about it was we got a screenshot in the Glory Reds group. All right, and I think the screenshot was captioned something along the lines of Mason Mount. It was a screenshot from I think Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. Mason Mount was bought to sell shirts. Right now, man,
It sparked
it
debate.
that it sparked debate, and that's a story that's very easy to believe. That's a rumor that you can put out there because with United being so chaotic and not doing the right things over the years, it's not a very hard rumor to look at and say, you know what, I think there's some validity in that and
Yeah.
it could be true. So when I looked at it, my initial reaction was, I just want to get to it real quick. But my initial reaction was 50-50. I was on the fence. I'm like, you know what? This could be true,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it could just be a rumor, right? Because
Yeah.
I know that United do have a habit of doing these certain things, right? And obviously, that's where we are financially. When you look at the past in terms of players that we bought, probably shouldn't have bought them, looking at the way forward. So the motive was very clear, right? That they just bought the player to sell shirts. Di Maria, Falcao, Zlatan, who else? Ronaldo, the list goes on, right? We always knew that we're never going to have these players for a prolonged period of time. They were never going to be the answer to our bigger overall problems. They're always going to be there to patch up the cracks and to make money off it. That was like, a win-win deal for both the club and the player coming into the club. So I think there's no way some of these players, some of them coming into the club are not aware of that. They're very much aware that I'm not coming here for 5 years. They know what the give and take is with the situation. Mason Mount is different because he's a young player, right? He's not some veteran player, retiring player, whatever. No, he's different. He's young, right? So this claim is very much, outlandish. But thankfully, I can say we sort of got this situation debunked, right? I don't know if a lot of you guys watched the United Stand, but if you haven't, you can go and check out one of the episodes. I can't remember what it's titled. Probably have the link in the description. But basically, one of the reporters, journalists, whatever you want to call her, from the United Stands, Beth, apparently before we got Mason Mount, she was in a return flight from I can't remember where. She happened to sit next to, I think it was Darren Fletcher at that time, and they had a conversation in general about Manchester United. Mason Mount came up, right? And he basically told Beth that Mason Mount is a player that Erik Ten Hag admires, and that's a player that he wants. All right, I'm paraphrasing, and I'm just making it short. So
Yeah.
now we've now come to that conclusion that this was a signing that Erik Ten Hag wanted, because I think for a long time, we're debating whether Mason Mount was an Erik Ten Hag signing or not, right? And that's obviously due to the beginning of the season, how he was utilized. Of course, he got injured, etc., etc. But yeah, this whole rumor has been debunked. So this episode, or in this section, we're not gonna specifically talk about the rumor itself, right? Because I don't think there's really so much to get in about it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's true or false, I don't think it really matters, right?
Yeah.
It just goes to show that whenever you want to talk about Manchester United, you can just throw anything at the wall and it will stick.
Yeah.
With this episode in particular, I think we want to talk about what exactly is the way forward with Mason Mount, right? And I think that's something a lot of United fans and even ourselves want to know what exactly the situation is with them, because now that we have confirmed for certain that he is an Erik Ten Hag signing and that he does want the player, how exactly is he going to utilize him? How? You know what I mean? How is he going to fit into this system? Because I think we tried it at the beginning of at the beginning of the season, and it didn't necessarily work. All right, and I can't remember which three midfielders he employed. I don't know if it was Bruno Mount and I don't know if it was Ericsson or Casimiro. I can't remember. But anyway, obviously now that we've got Kobe in the picture, right?
Yeah.
How is it gonna work out? Because now remember, Kobe is also not like a CDM, because we still need a CDM. He's not really like a CDM. You can say he's more preferred as, or he does his best work as an attacking midfielder, as a box to box, but he's not really that player that you want to rely on as your CDM, like Declan Rice, for example, he's a perfect CDM.
Yeah.
So how does he now fit into this system at Man United? So yeah, man, go for it. Give me your thoughts, man. I've spoken. Let me
Oof.
let you, and then I'll jump
It's very
into it.
interesting because I was one of those people that was a little bit skeptical about the Mason Mount deal. I didn't understand. I mean, I understood it. First of all, I need to mention that I was excited because I thought it
Mm,
was a bargain. I thought Chelsea were crazy to let go of Mount. That's the first thing that came into my mind. I actually thought this was a joke. I'm like, wait, what? Mount? Am I missing something? What's happening? And
yeah,
as Manchester United, they're so used to doing things like that. You mentioned that we've been in situations where we've bought players, where we've tried to understand whether it's because the manager wanted to buy the player or it was the club and stuff like that. And then obviously, you remember even back in the days, there used to be rumors that I don't know if it was Ed Woodward or Avram Glazer, one of them. They wanted to buy certain players because um, he felt like if the opposition team see the guy's name on his list in the list, they will
yeah,
be terrified. Something along those lines. And I was like, what? But then you look
mm,
at the player profile of Mason Mount. Mason
yeah,
Mount is not in any way a player that is defensive. I'm sure you can train him, but in any sort of sense, he's somebody that plays on the top half of the field. And when you look at what we needed at the time when they got Mason Mount, he was not the player that we actually needed. So though that's where the birth of these questions of like, wait, why are we buying Mason Mount? We have Bruno there. What's the deal? Are you buying him for Ericsson? Okay, if you're buying him for Ericsson, why is it like you're not trying to make it work? Because even that time he was still trying to put Mason Mount as the number 10 and Bruno out on the wing. He was taking Bruno out
yeah,
of the pitch. So I
yeah,
was like, what is this? What is this? Because Mason Mount can play as can play as the number 10, can play at the left wing, can play in the right wing. That's
yeah,
when he was at Chelsea. I've seen him play in those three positions. So
yeah,
he can play in those positions, but who do you take out like to put him in there? Which is
yeah,
not going to be difficult because I think Mason Mount is a top player. But I'm trying to understand the idea behind it. Like, what were we trying to do? Were we trying to get in two sort of number 10s inside our pitch? Are we supposed to have like one, like a holding and then one box to box? But Mount is not a box to box. He can, but he's
yeah.
not. So we have
Not.
Kobe Manu, we have Casemiro, we've got Bruno, we've got Mount. It didn't make sense to me. I really didn't understand. And then obviously you get these stories that Klopp was looking into him, and I was like, that is a big deal. Once a top player is looking at a player, then you must think that there must be a reason in there. So yeah, for a very long time, I was just skeptical. I thought that it was one of those things where the club projects, like a club goes there and buys the player, and then everybody else in the club, the employees and what, they have to fall in line. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah,
We bought this player, you go out there and speak highly of him. You go out there and say these nice things. That's what I used to think. I mean, that's what I thought was going on.
yeah,
So yeah, man. But this is good news. This is good
yeah,
news. I am happy to hear that no, this guy was truly Erik Ten Hag's player. Only Erik Ten Hag
yeah,
is obsessed with the guy.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I like when managers get into this sort of crazy thing where they're like, I'm obsessed with this player. I want this player to come and do things. And then when he does the put the player in and then the player actually performs, such a beautiful thing to see. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing Mount integrated into this team. I really, really
yeah,
am. But you asked me a question. You said, Ben, how are we going to integrate Mason Mount into this whole thing? It's crazy. The only way I see that happening is if either Bruno or Casemiro or Meno, one of those guys is going to lose their spot. One of them.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know how else to. There is no other way it can work if you want to get Mason Mount in there. because for some reason we don't want to put Mason Mount on the wings, which is understandable because we've got we've got Rashi, we've got Ganacho. So we've got in abundance in the wing. So he's definitely going to be featured more in the midfield.
Yeah.
And who do you want? Bruno of late has not been good.
Yeah.
I can even say it. He's my favorite player. I've not been impressed with his performances. So, to a certain extent, Mason Mount coming back, I'm excited because I want to see Bruno. And I know what I'm about to say is going to shock some people. Maybe it's not even going to shock some people. But I think Bruno needs a little bit of time. He
Mm.
needs to be dropped. He needs to reevaluate, like get that hunger in him again.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen when a player has been dropped and he wants to come in
Mm.
and help. Bruno has got
Yeah.
that thing. Drop him,
Yeah.
let him feel that thing of like, fuck, I should be in there trying to help.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fucking do this Hollywood pass. No, 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 I'm gonna get it right. No, 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 I'm gonna do this. You get him into that play. Then when he comes in, he's just firing on all cylinders. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of Manchester United fans can actually agree with me that the games that we've seen Bruno come off the bench, like come from the bench, he has come on
Yeah.
to change the game for us completely to a point where we'll be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, we really, really missed Bruno. Bruno is making us tick. We are now um, pressing up top. Like, we're not allowing this. We're getting some creativity in there. So I think
Yeah.
for some reason, we need that to happen. At the same time, I am terrified to not have Bruno in my team because
Yeah.
despite his bad performances, despite Bruno being in this funk that he is in,
Yeah.
that guy puts in a shift. Whether you don't like
True.
what he's doing or not, I feel comfortable with Bruno in there. Bruno is
Yeah.
always sticking right up until the last minute, even if you get like 20 minutes of him just throwing his hands in the air or whatever. But then
Yeah.
top players, like players, they have this thing where it's like they just need a moment. And Bruno
Yeah.
has done that numerous times for us. You look at that
Yeah.
equalizer, that last minute goal by Casemiro, that free kick. Had it been
Yeah.
anybody else, that's not a goal. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you because Bruno saw that thing. He's like, all right, no, no, no. He's calculated. This is not the first time he has done that. He did that against
Yeah.
City. He has that brain. Now,
Mm.
in a team that doesn't have creativity or doesn't have that,
Yeah.
bro, if you take out that creative spark in there, it becomes even
Yeah.
more difficult. You know what I mean?
True.
So I don't know. I really don't know. I would love to
Yeah.
see Mason Mount in there, but I don't know, dog.
Yeah. Man, I
It,
hear you. And just talking on Mason Mount, like you said, at Chelsea, and I think what the world knows him for, the footballing world knows him for, is that he's really good when he's playing in the final third of the pitch. He's a player that you just don't want to see him around the midfield, like almost like how we don't want to see Scott McTominay around the midfield. Like, dude, just become a striker, become a fallback striker. But the same thing with Mount. I don't want to see him in the midfield. I don't want to see him. I want to see him as an attacking a number 10. I don't want to see him as number 8. I don't want to see him as number 6. I don't want him, like even Ericsson,
molding.
some,
Huh.
it just weirdly worked out for Ericsson. But Ericsson as well, you want him playing up front. You want him number 10 attacking. You don't want to see him playing that deep. I don't want to see Mount playing that deep, And like I said, we need a CDM. We can't rely on Casemiro for another season. We're pushing our luck. We're honestly pushing our luck. So we do need a CDM. And then, like you said, once we get a CDM, I think that automatically replaces, or let me not say replaces, but takes Casemiro out of the pecking order, right? So now it's down to two more spots. And this is according to Erik Ten Hag, how he wants to play in his formation. Now looking at who starts, who gets dropped, right? So we're saying that let's just put it out there. Bruno won't get dropped. All right. So it's definitely going to be Bruno and CDM. Now it leaves one space open for Kobe or Mason. For me, I don't have a problem with it. For me, it is we have to employ the strategy that has always been employed in Manchester United, that's even being employed with Pep Guardiola. All right. You need to show me that this is your position. And that's the only way these players are gonna step the fuck up. And if it ends up being a case where we're putting Mason Mount ahead of Garnacho, so be it. If we're putting Mason Mount ahead of Rashford, so be it. Ahead of Anthony, whatever. I don't care, you know. And it's funny because I never thought about it in this way. When you said that, put Bruno on the bench and let him get that hunger to come back onto the pitch, and then when he gets back, he makes sure that he nips all those little mistakes in the bud, so that he doesn't see himself on the bench. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, you're right. You know, these players need to get benched. I mean, look at Jack Grealish. Look at Phil Foden. Look at Doku. Look at Bernardo Silva. Those guys don't start on default. Those guys start according to how well they're doing, you know? So if these guys are not going to be playing well, they're not going to be starting. Finished and clap, you know? So play well, you will start. You know, you'll see Jack Grealish starting. You'll be having a good game. You know, as soon as he starts dipping in form, boom, Doku's in. You know what I mean? Now Jack
Mm,
Grealish is hungry on the bench.
mm,
Fuck, I need to get my
mm.
shit together so I can get back
Yeah.
and tip check. So yeah, man. I think at United it needs to be like that. Players need to for their fucking position, you know. And I think
Yeah.
that's why a lot of United players were very upset when Marcus Rashford was continuously being played, even though he was massively out of form, and we had
Mm.
other players that were in his place. Anthony, you know, Pelestri was waiting on the sideline, getting ready to start. He wasn't being played. Now I'm hearing stories about Pelestri not wanting to return to Manchester United.
Bro,
So
that's
yeah, man. With Mason Mount, it just has to be that thing of um we shouldn't worry about who is going to get dropped. It should be
mm.
that thing of these players need to make sure. You know, one last example, it brings me back to that time when Alex Telles was brought into Manchester United to be our new left back. And then you saw all of a sudden,
Roberto
here,
Carlos.
Roberto Carlos. You
Roberto
know what I
Carlos
mean?
was gone.
Hey, man. You see what I'm saying? Imagine if it wasn't for that, Ben, who knows? Luke Shaw probably would have never been the player that he is today. But
Bro.
just because of that threat, because of that thing of my position is at risk, I can't,
And we need
risk
to
it.
give him praise for that
And
because
we need to give him and we
he
need to give him
accepted the
praise for that.
challenge, you know? He's
Exactly,
like, oh, you
exactly.
want a new left back? Cool.
Yeah,
We'll see
and he
who's
and he
better.
took it on.
Yeah, we'll see
Exactly.
who's better. Then he
Yeah.
just boom. And Teles never saw light in the day.
Exactly. And that was the
Yeah.
end of it. But yeah, as I was saying, I don't mind Mason Mount, being a threat to people's positions, but it must be a threat in the right positions. It shouldn't be um to positions where he shouldn't be playing in. So it should be a threat to Bruno, it should be a threat to Kobe, because I want to see Kobe playing more up front. It should be a threat to Garnacho,
Yeah,
Rashford,
yeah,
Diallo, Les, all our wingers, fuck it, even fucking maybe I'm going a bit too far, but obviously when we don't have Rasmus, have Mount playing as a false nine. I don't give a fuck. You get what I'm saying? But everybody needs to be on their toes, and the more of these players return, we just need to employ that. So I just hope that look, I don't know sorry, I'm gonna speak a little bit about Pelestri. You know, I don't know what Pelestri is doing in training. I don't know what Pelestri is doing wrong. So I don't know who to really throw blame at or whatever. But Pelestri is one player that every time he comes on that pitch, he plays. He shows why he needs to fucking start. You understand? So it's honestly beyond me why he fell so down the pecking order and has not been really considered by Erik Ten Hag. I don't know what he's doing that is taking that is not interesting Ten Hag, but yeah, man. I'd rather prefer Pelestri over Anthony any day, and
that's
I just really hope that we don't lose him because he's a player, man.
he's
He's
a
a player,
player.
and he may not be a starter, but he's definitely a player that you can easily say I'm happy for him to come off the bench because I know he's gonna come and cause problems,
Bro,
but he needs that game
he
time.
has that low center of gravity thing going on. It's very difficult,
Yeah.
technically gifted on the ball, not very easy to take the
Yep.
ball away from him. No, honestly, the Pelestri situation, I blame Ten Hag. There is no other
Yeah.
way. There is no other way
Yeah.
to who to blame. No, it's Ten Hag. He
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
prefer Pelestri. He prefers somebody else. Like Pelestri came from. Uruguay, we bought him cheap. We put him in the academy. He had to start off in the academy,
Mm,
just like Ahmad as well. They played there
yeah,
for how long? And this is a
exactly.
player that we bought to play
And
for
their way.
Manchester United, you know. And
Yeah,
to Pelestri, he, man, he's worked hard. Like it's not easy for a child to leave his home, South America, come to England. You know, you're there in academy, just living there, doing. It's not easy, but he did it, and
yeah,
he's not given the game time.
yeah,
It really sucks. At the end
yeah,
of the day, like
yeah,
it's the manager's choice. You know what I mean? If he feels like
yeah,
Anthony or Garnacho or Bruno or Mount, whoever he prefers on that ride is better than Pelé.
yeah,
I mean, that's his loss. Honestly, that's his loss.
yeah, yeah. True, true,
It's
true.
his loss.
Yeah, man. But yeah, Mason Mount.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I just hope that he causes the disruption.
He will.
Yeah,
He will. He will. Mason Mount is bro. He's. I'm happy. This is like a new signing. It's almost like a January signing. Him coming back. The
yeah,
only
yeah.
issue is it was the same when he gonna how many times has he gone back to like got been injured at United? Twice, right?
This is
Twice or three
probably
times.
the third. I think this is the third
You
one.
see, you
Yeah,
want the repeat.
I think this is the third.
If he gets injured again, this is a Pogba situation. This is a Martial situation.
Exactly,
This is
exactly.
and everybody like a normal injury prone player that we want. And then you go back and you'll be like,
Yeah,
why? Why did you make this
yeah,
mistake in bringing in an injury
e-
prone player? Now, obviously, you didn't know
exactly.
because he wasn't injured that much, but
Mm.
you understand they didn't do the due diligence.
Yeah, no,
It's
exactly.
really, but Mount is mint. He he is
Yeah.
described as a sponge. He's described as
Mm.
coaches like players like Mason Mount. Here's also another
Mm.
player I can his brain. When I compare the when I do the comparisons onto what other players and managers say about certain players, Xavi Alonso,
Yeah.
né? He's one player that people say that he's
Yeah.
got a brain that is ridiculous. Like he's got
Yeah.
this IQ that is now. I don't know if you've heard this, but I heard that Mason Mount has got that IQ of being taught
Yeah.
and grasping things fast and just being
Mm.
a distinction student, A star. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's what we get
The most
from
simplest way
Mason
to
Mount.
put it.
And to
Yeah.
top that, he has won the Champions League. In our team, we've got very few
Yeah.
players that have won the Champions League. So he brings that level of
Yep.
experience. I know it's not that big, but it is there. He has the experience
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. He's
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
excited, bro. Mason Mount is going to terrorize people. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
And you know the thing, and the thing is, nah,
Yeah.
is that it's so funny that United have got a lot of new players this season and maybe academy graduates and whatever who actually haven't played alongside each other because of injury
Yeah.
reasons. So when you think about it, Mount hasn't been in a squad with Hoyland. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, he hasn't.
You know, he hasn't. He hasn't been in a squad where it's like on the same pitch. It's like Kobe, Mount, Rasmus, Garnacho. Fuck, I'm even gonna throw Diallo in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We haven't seen a United team that looks like that.
Yeah. Only
You know,
preseason.
and for, yeah, and for me, it's like we haven't yet seen the real first team of United
You
because they've either been on
I
loan.
say,
You know, they
within our grasp, then that.
no,
I
no, no,
no.
no. That one,
Listen,
nah, fam,
the confidence I
nah.
have
It's still
in that
late.
is the return
Yeah,
of our squad.
but by the time they return, Ben, you know that Ten Hag is it's highly improbable that he's actually going to start all those players at the same time. It's highly improbable that you're going to see um Garnacho, Rasmus, Diallo, Mount,
No, I mean
Kobe,
Diallo.
Bruno.
Nah.
Do you get
But you're gonna
do you
see
get what I'm
Wan
saying?
Bissaka,
And
Delo.
that's sort of like
Yeah, you're gonna see a
yes,
solid team.
but that's what I'm saying. That's sort of like that type of team that I'm talking about, right? Not the old team with the Ericsons, and there's nothing wrong with that old team, you know, with the Ericsons in the first 11, the Martial, whatever, whatever. But clearly, these guys have that time has gone. And now we're now starting to look forward. We're now starting to build from these new crop of players. So we haven't seen that, and we're probably only gonna get a chance to that next season. So even when these guys return from injury, obviously some of them, yes, they would kick off straight off the ground up and running, but some of them obviously will need some time. You know how Ten Hag is; he's going to slowly integrate them and push them into the team. So, like I said, by the time we probably see our strongest 11 when everyone's back from injury, it's probably going to be at the back end of the season when there's like 2 games left. You know what I mean? Probably like the last 3 games when everyone's properly back from injury. That's probably when we want to see what the team is going to be possibly looking like for next season, right? Obviously, we want to come and get more players during the break. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
CDM center back, a striker, another right back. It's a lot, but anyway, we'll get into that in the next topic. But yeah, just to conclude, let's wrap this up so we can have this conversation properly in the next section.
Yeah.
Mason Mount, um, confirmed that is an Erik Ten Hag signing. The shirt thing, it hasn't been confirmed if it's a rumor or if it's true. Honestly, the coin can land on any side. And yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
they've sold
Anything
their
you want to
shirts.
say? Any
No?
last thing?
Did they sell their shirts? Did they hit their
Yeah,
mark?
that's all the shirts. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So it is what it is.
What is it?